demystify some of that. It's always interesting to introduce yourself and then have an introduction slide. So I think I'll just jump right into, I tried to go kind of minimal on the presentation so we could use some, not to say real world application, but I spun up a quick demo site so that we can see how things render on the front end and where it comes from in the code. So I'll share my screen and get started.
And just for everybody's reference, we are recording this for people who aren't able to make the meetup tonight. So if you don't want to be your face recorded, you can turn off your camera, but we're going to go ahead and record the session.
Zoom always covers up the things that you need. So I've updated my my little spiel for advanced custom fields because I think WordPress has gotten much more user-friendly, especially from managing content. So really I see advanced custom fields as a way to take control of WordPress and just get our hands around things a little bit more thoroughly. My name is Joseph. I joke that my middle name should be "It's like Joseph with an E." My parents decided to get unique with my name, and so I'll spell it out with capitals because people often ask me if the E is a typo. And before I dig in here, please don't hesitate to interrupt me. If you've got questions, just jump right in. So we're going to be talking about advanced custom fields. They have a very obvious URL, advancedcustomfields.com. I've been using advanced custom fields, I feel like, for my entire career with WordPress, which professionally speaking goes back to 2010. I started dabbling in, I think, 2008. Went to school for marketing and just got interested in web design. The academic side of the web design, to me was very outdated, and it was very Hello World, where it was kind of teaching you how to code up examples, but it didn't really apply to real world building a website. So I just kind of took it upon myself to dive into web design, which is what brought me to WordPress. Started building sites just for fun, built a site for a friend, and that kind of took me into the path of freelancing, and ran an agency for a while, worked in-house for a few companies, and now I'm splitting my time by being in-house at a not-for-profit, and I have a small agency here in Evansville, Indiana, where I've been for 2.5 years now, but was in Buffalo for 10 years. So the basics behind ACF, technically speaking, everything is created with fields. That's the advanced custom fields. And really, you know, Gutenberg and the new block editor has changed WordPress a little bit in this sense, but the idea being that when you create content in WordPress, you have kind of a universal content editor where everything goes, so images, texts, and then really outside of that, you just you have a title field and you can select categories. And from a content entry standpoint, that's really all you have, which is very effective if you have a blog, for example. Anything else that you see, plugins like WooCommerce for e-commerce, event plugins, they're all managing things by creating their own fields, their own places to store different types of data that aren't used in the typical WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get editor, where you just put everything in one place, maybe separate it with some headings, and that's all. Advanced custom fields allows us to break out of that model and do some more advanced things. So using WordPress for a full content management system, which is what it is today. And it's not just a blogging platform. Programmatically speaking, and I'll get into this deeper, fields are called in templates by either the field, which prints the data, or get field, which lets you reference the data. I'll get into the specifics here, but when we're using a repeater or flexible content field, those become subfields. So there's, it's easier to show you later, but that's data that's stored within a set becomes subfields. And then when you're creating fields, those can be stored in field groups. The field groups are really just from the admin experience, and I'll go through the dashboard to show everything, but a field group stores a collection of fields. The example I gave here is if you want to have a bunch of different post fields, you could put them in post customization would be the group for all of those fields. When displaying, sorry, my Zoom window's in the way here for me. Displaying data, this is kind of just the basics. This first example is outputting a title field within an H2 tag. So that's just a text field that outputs the text here. I use this example here within a div. There are like editor fields that will automatically add paragraph tags. You can add media to them so they can kind of replace the content editor. Though that I put that within a div just to show that you don't necessarily have to encapsulate things in a specific HTML markup. And then getting a bit more advanced here, we have an image variable that is being set to the data stored within the image field. And that is actually an array. So this little snippet here says that if the image variable is set by get field, let's output this string, which is an image tag. And we're going to be pulling the URL from the image field and the alt text from the image field. Don't worry if you're not familiar with PHP or HTML, but this is just kind of the basics that a developer or potentially yourself would use to display data that's stored within ACF. Something I should have started with, a little bit of a caveat with advanced custom fields, is it makes sites really easy to manage from a content management standpoint, but it does typically require a developer because you'll need to output that code into your theme template files. So what's the point of all this with ACF? How is this all used? I use this as an example of a site that I built for a national tour. And this was data that I needed to output on a page. So each of these entries is a tour stop that displays the date, the city name also linked to an individual event page, the ticket link linked to the ticketing portion of that event page. So you can imagine if you needed to build this with the typical WordPress editing experience, you're talking tons of lines of HTML that you have to build yourself. You could also use a premium events plugin. The reason I didn't use that is all of the events plugins were very constrained in the types of events, and we had a lot of unique elements. We had multiple events throughout the day that you could buy tickets for, multiple discounts. So we just needed a custom solution. You could build something like this with the new block editor or Gutenberg by using a block type that would output this. But again, you'd be constrained by the display that the developer had built into that, the designer had built into that. And even that, it's a little bit harder to do repeating content like this because this isn't just a traditional list. It's a list that includes a unique date, a city name. That city name is then linked, and then a ticket link that is connected to that specific event. So again, when you approach a problem like this with WordPress, it's like, okay, here we go. Get my copy and paste ready. You know, I hope I don't forget a bracket or forget to close something and everything breaks. That's not the case with ACF. It's even though development is a little bit complicated because you have to understand code, it takes a lot of the hard work out of it for you. So this is how this data is stored with ACF. I'm able to enter the city name that will be displayed in text, I can use this nice date picker field where I don't have to type all of this out and make sure it's all formatted correctly. I can select an actual date from a calendar. And then this city link field is actually selecting from a group of pages. So you can have a page relational or post relational, where you can pull the link from any WordPress content within the site. So you can see here, by clicking add row and entering these few fields, I'm able to replicate and generate all of that data that's then displayed on the front end. So that made my life a lot easier, and it made it possible to customize things along the way.
Is it easy enough to pull data from outside of your from a database outside of your WordPress database?
So that wouldn't likely be something that you would use advanced custom fields for, because advanced custom fields does create tables within the WordPress database. So it's really used to store and display data from your own site. It doesn't mean it couldn't be used in conjunction with an external, database or like an API. But that would really be more specific to that API, and it's not, ACF doesn't really have any connector capabilities in that sense. There are a few things, like there's a Google Maps advanced custom fields field type where you can use address or lat and long data to pull in and then generate a Google map. So that's one example where you're kind of referencing external data. But yeah, I don't think this would necessarily be the best way to pull from an external database.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. So the programming basics of the PHP layout of what ACF does to generate that data is a simple if statement that checks to see if the repeater field, so these are all repeater fields called spring schedule, and it looks and it says if there's rows stored in this repeater, create a while loop. And so while rows exists and they haven't been exhausted, display data in some way, and that loop, if there's no data found, output some other kind of code. That's really following the basics of like the WordPress post loop, where when you display posts on your site, it says if there are posts, begin a loop, and while there are additional posts to display, keep outputting them. So it's very similar to that, but in this case, we're looking at custom fields data instead of the posts database. So this is kind of, it's very specific to the site I built, but I just wanted to show some of the types of things that were possible, and then also show that ACF is really powerful in custom displays of data. So we have two different header types here that we're just be able to toggle on and off and say, if we want the full header that has a YouTube embed and then a heading, display this. If we've selected the other layout, just display just the text. So that data is stored in that post, but we can decide whether or not we want to display the full data set. Within the events themselves, again, I had mentioned that most event plugins weren't able to accomplish what I needed to for this site. So we had venue information, but then we also had 2 events within that city that we wanted to be able to describe. And then with the ticketing, we had some conditionals where if a city was not ready to sell tickets yet, we output an opt-in for the newsletter to learn when that city became available. If there were tickets available, display the different ticket types, and then we had a downloadable PDF available. On the advanced custom field side of things, these were all the field groups that I had on this site. And then you can see here, advanced custom fields allows you to point these fields at different parts of the WordPress editing experience. So in this case, we were only loading these field groups if the, excuse me, this set of fields, if the page template was a city page. So if I just created an about page, I didn't have all these complicated fields that I had to just ignore or try to collapse. The fields actually just wouldn't show up. So this was only made available on that page template. And that's, again, something that I like about advanced custom fields versus other solutions like page builders, is you're kind of inundated with this editing experience that can do anything that you can possibly imagine. And that can be really daunting when you just want to create your about page, or maybe the other side, you don't need the content editor when you're building out the layout on your own. Related to that, you can also hide a number of elements on the editing screen. So in this case, we actually weren't using the default WordPress editor. Everything was just being built out with these fields. So for the editors and the staff that were working on this page, we were hiding all of these fields because they weren't relevant. And it was just a way to say, you know, if they're not going to use it, instead of telling people to ignore it, let's just not show that to them in the first place. Fields themselves can also have conditional logic. So if I had selected that it was a past event and tickets were no longer available, it would remove the need to have the event date or the ticketing box because the event had passed, or we would have a past event field that could be populated, but again, that was only necessary if the event had passed. And I'll dig into this on a real site. I just want to give kind of an overview of the power of ACF. So then in the editing experience, you could see if external tickets were available, it let us create an external link. If the date didn't have a venue yet, you could select this and it would output TBD. This is a past event section I was referring to. Default values, I'll get to on another slide, are really helpful when you're trying to create a lot of pages. So we had, at one point, we had 60 events running on this website, and being able to input a lot of the default value in some of these fields meant as soon as I created a new city page, a lot of this was just populated already for me. I could make changes to it, but if I wanted to, I could just create a new city page, publish it, and all the default content would display. This venue block, workshop block is part of flexible content, which I'll get to, which is like a repeater, but far more advanced. And again here, this is an example of setting a default value so that when a page was created, if this field exists, if nothing has changed and the post is published or the post type is published, this default data will display, which is really nice, again, when you have to keep replicating pages, so you don't have to clone them and then remove other content. You can just kind of start with the content that needs to be there. But it's still editable, so it's not a hard-coded template where you have to hire the developer to make changes to that default content. So flexible content is very similar, like I said, to a repeater field, but it allows you to create different data types that you can have 5 of, or it allows you to create like a page layout. So in this case, if you want a paragraph, a download, or you could potentially have multiple paragraphs. This allows you to build really complex layouts. Again, similar to a page builder, but it really gives the developer control of what's displayed, how it's displayed, the design of it. And this is my former agency's website. And so this, I'm sorry if the Zoom animation is choppier than the GIF already was. This is all created with flexible content. So each row in this area is a different flexible content field that has, you know, a header, paragraph text, image on one of them. There's the testimonial, the call to action. So all of these are just types of data that I knew I wanted to use on this page, but they can be added on the back end, one row at a time. There is a paid a free and a paid version of Advanced Custom Fields. Elliot Condon, the developer of Advanced Custom Fields, finally raised his prices, which I'm happy about. I already have a license. I'm sorry that it's more expensive for you now, but I used to always tell people I would pay like 10 times what I had paid for the license just to support the developer, because it's made my life as a developer so much easy. I've been able to create much more complex websites. But there's a free version of the plugin that's really powerful, and it really does just about everything except for those repeater fields that you see, the flexible content I talked about, and then some of the custom back end like WordPress dashboard options that you get are within the Pro version. I honestly don't know offhand the price, but whatever it is, I promise it's worth it. And the free version of the plugin does so much that you can absolutely get a really long way digging into Advanced Custom Fields before you need to purchase the Pro plugin. So you can really get a feel for it before you're diving in and paying for that license. So something that people often ask about is if they use Yoast, which is the most common SEO plugin, and it analyzes all of their post content. It tells them if they're using keywords and all of that. Because ACF fields are not in the main content editor, out of the box, Yoast wouldn't see that. So if you didn't use the content field at all, but then you had a 4,000 word post stored in a custom field, Yoast might say, well, you're not using these keywords. So they have worked together. There's a plugin that allows Yoast to crawl that content and just see it as part of the post content, so you know that your pages are using keywords appropriately. So that is I kind of went quick there. That's my whole presentation. Everything that you see where the light touches is yours, something like that. But really, ACF just opens the door for you to be able to do, I think, everything that WordPress promises that you would be able to do out of the box. It takes a little extra work, but ACF really, there's not a problem that I can't solve, I feel like. Now that I've got so much in-depth knowledge with ACF, when clients come to me and they're like, well, do you think you could do this? When it comes to displaying content, most likely with a combination of WordPress's default editor and ACF, it is all possible. I'm on Twitter. My handle is @JessofM. Or if you have a longer problem, or if you need to be able to send files back and forth, my email is jessof@sitetrio.com. I'll make sure I can leave that elsewhere. That's it for the quick presentation. I do have, again, a demo site where I'd love to walk through some things, but also I'd love to pause here to answer any quick questions just on what you've seen of ACF so far.
Any questions, anybody? Go straight ahead then, Jessop.
Okay, so I don't know if anybody's ever presented before, but someone needs to do a presentation on Local by Flywheel. That's how I'm running this site, just off my own laptop. It's amazing. Let me just like spin the site up and be able to display it for you guys. So it's free, so I'm not trying to get paid by them. Local by Flywheel is a really great development tool. So this is just the 2020 theme that I've made a few customizations to, just to show the power of ACF and what can be done. On the home page here, you can see I've added this phone number at the top here, and a Twitter link and website link to the footer. I wanted to do that just to show that usually when we think about advanced custom fields, we're talking about within individual posts, but there's a lot of times where there's some value to adding site-wide customizations and data that you want to maybe display multiple places or everywhere. And so advanced custom fields allows you to create your own options page, which again, if you've ever used a premium theme, they typically have these areas that are within the dashboard that let you input custom data and then display it. They're using some sort of custom fields framework, whether it's ACF or Metabox, or we talked before some people joined, there's another one called Pods, that allows you to store data in a table and then call it elsewhere on the website. So I have a phone number custom field, and then I have these external links. So again, here, if I go back to the front end of the site, that generates a list with both of these links with the text, and then the phone number is displayed here. If I wanted to add another link, I can just hit add row, test link, google.com, save that site-wide, and it's now displayed. And that's the great thing again about advanced custom fields, is I just added a whole nother row, was able to display it and didn't have to do any additional coding. So again, while there is some learning curve and a developer needs to be involved, or somebody that's willing to get their hands dirty and code a little bit, once this is created, there's so much more control over the WordPress infrastructure that the handoff, it really empowers end user. So you, the site owner, or if you're working on client sites, it allows you to create a better experience for clients. There's a lot less headaches where they're coming back to you for something like adding a link to Google in their footer. It empowers them to do that themselves. That snippet is, again, we saw the code example where there was an if statement saying if there are social media profiles, which is the name of that repeater field, and this little flag, and I'll show you some of the ACF documentation. This tells me that it's coming from an options page, which is what this is here. If there's data there, create a footer links container and then start a unordered list element called footer links. And then while there is more data to display, create a new list item for each of these and output the field link URL and link text into this little HTML snippet. So that's what it looks like there. And then to create that, I created a site-wide field group. This name really doesn't matter. It's just for your reference. So when you're looking through, it's kind of like looking at your posts, list of posts in the site-wide area. I created the phone number field that's displayed in the header, and I'll show how that's output. And then the social media profiles, that is a repeater field, then has a text field and a link field that get output. And I added this little add the text link for each desired link or social media profile. You can do that for the entire repeater, but you can also do that for individual fields. So if you wanted, again, to make it more foolproof for an end user or a client, you could say, please input a valid URL. A valid complete URL will give them some feedback to know that these need to be actual URLs. So if it's Twitter, don't just put the handle in, or if it's a website, make sure you're using the protocol. This will actually validate and check that you're using a URL because I've used the URL field type. The header phone number, I intentionally did a little bit with not the best practices. So I just built a div and I put the phone number with call us at and then output the field. So if I, in my settings, had not entered a phone number and we go to the site, it's still going to say call us at blank. And so typically it's best practice to wrap any output that's going to be field dependent in an if statement. So if I instead say, live coding, it's always fast. So now what I'm saying is, if this field is set, then create this section. And so now when I've saved that, when I refresh, that's not there because nobody put in a phone number. But if I add the phone number and come back, it's now going to say, okay, that field is set, so output this whole section. So that's just kind of a developer fallback to give yourself, it adds an additional line of code that you have to remember to write. But this kind of, again, foolproofs the site, where if a client forgets to enter their phone number, they're not calling you and saying, why does my website say call us at? I didn't add anything yet. So you can feel a little bit redundant at times, but it's always a good practice to do a check that the field exists before you alter the output of the site, and don't make the assumption that that data is going to be there. On an individual post, I just wanted to show some of the ways that you can use conditionals. So not necessarily even outputting new data, but in 2020, the theme displays the category by default. In the editor here, I created a post settings field group that has the option, do we want to hide the post category? So if I say yes, we can see the post category no longer displays. And so this is kind of the reverse of what I just did with that if statement, where now, I have to remember where that is in 20. So now I added to the 2020, it already does a check if a category is set. And I said, and if the hide category field is not set, then display the category. So because I did set this to yes, it will not output this whole section. So that's, again, that's just an example of, you may want to use ACF to create options and not just output new data. If I go back to the edit post. I also wanted to show that, again, you can kind of output data into code, but maybe isn't directly visible by the end user. So if I change, well, so the title is large here. If I change this to a medium and hit update, refresh, we've now got a smaller title. Excuse me. And the way I'm doing that is to say, by default, there's no extra class set for this title. But if we set a title class, set the title class to add a space beforehand and then output the title class. And then within the title, we have the entry title as default, and then we're adding my entry class when it exists. So here, we've got these choices. And then if you look at the way that I created that field group, I used select, which gives you this drop-down select option. So that's the field type. And then I populated that by here. This shows you, for more control, you may specify both the value and label. So you have the value and then the label. So these are all the classes that would be output. So if you select large, it picks heading size 1 as the class. If you select medium, it's heading size 2. So for the end user to just be able to change the post title size with a setting, is very much what they're going to become used to with the post editor, where again, you have a drop down to be able to select that size, but that's not available through the block editor here. Those options aren't available for the post title, except for now that we've added it. By default, advanced custom fields display below the editor here like this. For something like options, I actually like to go into my field groups, and for position here, you can select side, hit update. And now my post settings are going to display again in the sidebar. So it's much more familiar to the typical editing experience, because on the basic editor, there's no reason for the user to ever go down in this area. So now we've just got an additional post settings area here. And again, I've added a little explainer text to explain what my options do with this post. The last example I wanted to show was 2020 has a way to output the user bio that comes directly from the user editor screen here. So this is the bio that's displayed in this little author box. But I wanted a little bit more, so I wanted the ability to be able to display my Instagram profile, which if you follow me is useless. But so I added a field group called author details, and then added the field Instagram, where I have the ability to add my Instagram profile. So I added author details as a field group. And then what I said was show this field group if the user form is the add or edit user screen. And I'll just expand this here. This is all of the different places that advanced custom fields can be displayed. So you can have it on specific post types or templates or statuses. I don't have a specific use case for this, but you could maybe create an editor's notes screen or field that's only displayed on drafts. And when the post is published, there's no reason to display that on the back end anymore. You can customize category or tag screens, page templates. User form is specific to what I was just showing. If we only wanted the Instagram field available for authors, we could have said when the user form field is the edit screen and the user role is equal to author. So now only authors on the site would have the ability to enter this Instagram profile. So that's, again, just a couple quick examples of how it can be used in the real world. I'm building a site right now to output workouts, and I'm using Google's how-to schema. And so I'm building this whole custom snippet so that when somebody searches for something, Google will show the listed instructions, and that's all done by just code that is not displayed on the front end. So that's just another way. Again, you're storing data in the database and then just interfacing it with ACF in the way that you want to. If you are really into the block editor and Gutenberg, when Gutenberg and the block editor were coming out, I was really concerned with becoming obsolete because I do so much work with advanced custom fields, and the block editor was promising all these other ways to display data. Well, oftentimes you have to purchase premium plugins that have all these custom blocks. Again, one of the reasons I would give this developer all of my money is he took the time to code a way to actually build blocks just using advanced custom fields and not needing to learn a lot of custom JavaScript and templating. I won't dig into this too far. I think it's kind of a topic on its own, but in the documentation, it shows you how you could code this testimonial block with advanced custom fields. Again, instead of needing to purchase a premium suite just to find this testimonial block, you can make it look exactly the way you want to without overriding styles. You're actually creating your own. It does require some coding, but the documentation here is really just top notch. And if you follow, I think this is one case, if you follow this exact example to create this testimonial block, I think you'll get a little bit more comfortable and understand what is possible. So that if you wanted to create like a book review website and you wanted to start each post with the cover of the book, a little synopsis, and a star rating, you could build your own custom book review block and not need to buy an expensive plugin. So that is a lot at once. I again want to offer up if anybody has any questions about what's possible, about if you maybe have a problem you'd like to solve, how I would go about it with ACF, anything like that.
Anybody? No? Maybe we're all just overwhelmed, Joseph.
It's such a powerful plugin that it's hard not to talk too much about it.
Right.
One other thing that's I think really where I would start, Zoom is always in my way, with the ACF documentation is this field types page, and it just gives you an idea of what you could possibly create with advanced custom fields, and then each of these is linked to really, again, clear and in-depth documentation on how you would use these. So, you know, I used the true or false field to hide the category. If you go to this documentation, it walks you through both creating the field from making that field available, some examples of what it looks like, and then it shows how you would use that in your theme. So if the color field is set to enable, do something. Mine was if hide categories is selected, then hide the categories. So it makes that all really, really easy. And honestly, that's how I got my start. I knew I needed to create a custom field to display events. I found the documentation for this repeater field and just dug in. And I find myself coming back to the documentation often. I think there's a false assumption when you're getting into development that developers are out there memorizing entire code bases and never have to Google things. I had to open the repeater field documentation to create this example. So.
Joseph, I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so the other day I was working on one of my sites that had dates displayed in a sidebar for recipes. The dates the recipes were posted.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think maybe the recipe plugin got updated and it was like that. And I can't remember how I got it that way. And so instead, only the posts were showing. Would this be something I could apply to that? Like I just want the recipes were in projects, not posts.
Mm-hmm.
So if I wanted just the dates of each project listed in a sidebar, could this somehow apply to that?
Yeah, so there's kind of two things that you would have to accomplish, but you could definitely display that information with advanced custom fields.
Okay.
So this post object field type on the back end, or if you remember in my event example here, I'm sorry, my screen's probably small now, but if you see, this is a drop down where I could select Santa Fe. That's very similar to what you would be doing is if you create a post object field called recipes,
Mm-hmm.
for example, you could then choose the recipe here. So tiramisu, select it from this drop down. And then within the template usage, this is going to be a little bit complex here, but the setup post data, or again, you don't have to use that. You could say, take the post that I've selected and output the date from it.
Okay.
So here you have get the title, and this could be get the post meta publish date. And so you could say show the date and the title. I apologize, it's kind of complex to
No.
describe just verbally, but that's definitely, again, that's somewhere where technically you're not adding new information, but you just need to make it available to reference.
Yeah.
So yeah, using this post object, you could then pull the title, link, and date of each of those recipes.
Okay. I was just trying to correlate everything you just said to something that I might do. So that makes sense. Okay. All right. Thank you.
And that's actually kind of also a good case for advanced custom fields, where recipe plugins are really cumbersome. So I wouldn't necessarily say build everything from scratch, but the doing a little bit of the extra work to code some of the solution, in this case, not to say that you did anything wrong, because you didn't, would in theory have protected you against, you're using a third-party code base that got updated and then it unfortunately didn't function the way that you had gotten used to. If you were using a solution here, you would be able to go back and say, oh yeah, like I have to change this little piece of code. So again, not the greatest example, because recipe plugins are so in-depth that I wouldn't necessarily build one from scratch, although it might be fun. Something that ACF that's nice is, instead of looking for a plugin and being beholden to somebody else's development, is it puts you in control.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions for Joseph? It's a lot to take in for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, I really would encourage everybody to just look into it, dig in, and kind of find problems to solve for yourself. Again, right before we started, somebody was talking about pods. I'm really partial to ACF, but pods, Metabox, CMB2, there's a bunch of Metabox custom field plugins out there. And I really just think they open up a lot of possibilities. So I recommend digging in. Sorry, Michelle.
No, that's okay. I also posted in the chat 4 different online courses that I found, some through LinkedIn Learning, formerly lynda.com, and a couple others that I found online. So if somebody did want to dig a little deeper and wanted to kind of, look a little bit further that way, they could do that for sure.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking. It looks like there was a question in chat about writing code. Yeah, I'll let Michelle and some of the other Divi people. I know there are some ways to display ACF data within the editor not having to output code. Sometimes it's as simple as creating a short code. And so if you were putting something within a piece of content, you can populate a short code with ACF data. I think that's probably about as close as I know of that you can get for a no-code solution. But if Divi's doing that, then hats off to them.
That's the other Michelle that actually put that in there, but I think looks like she's not in the chat anymore.
Still here.
Oh, you are? Where are you?
I don't know.
Oh, there you are.
Hiding.
You're at the top of my list. I was like, everybody shifts around in these Zoom meetings. I never know where everybody's going to be. There you are. And it's dark and your face is all like.
Yes, I know. I'm like a shadow here.
You're like the witness protection program up there, Michelle. That's awesome. Other questions for Joseph? I mean, we're definitely going to have time here to talk about other questions outside of the ACF as well. And Joseph, you're welcome to stay. If you want to go to dinner, feel free to leave us too. We're not going to hold it against you. But if you want to kind of hang out and see what other questions we have, you're more than welcome to do that.
Yeah, I'll probably mute myself for a bit and see what's going on.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. This was really good. It was. I'm a kind of a newbie with all of that, and I felt like I came away with some understanding of what this was about, and kind of keep it in the back of my mind as I go forward. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's what I hope, is that people. It's intimidating and it's hard to talk about you know, I could just give a 40-minute talk on how to create a custom title with ACF, but if I don't dig a little bit deeper, I think it doesn't open up what's possible with it. So glad you found something.
For sure. And I still haven't played with advanced custom fields myself, but every time I think about it, I think of you. Other questions, other ideas, anything else in your brains going on about WordPress that you want to bring up tonight? Anything about your sites, anything at all? The floor is open. Hey, Joe, welcome. Joe Simpson's joined us.
Hey, Michelle, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Sorry I missed the presentation.
That's okay.
I saw it ping on social media, and I was like, because I was just finishing a meeting here in Los Angeles. So.
Well, we've been recording it, so we'll be sharing that out via Twitter as well, Joe. Thanks for joining us, though. Joseph,
Right.
Joe's one of the organizers for WordCamp Santa Clarita.
Oh, very nice.
So, out in California.
Virtual WordCamps.
Exactly. They were the second one to do a virtual WordCamp this year, so very cool. But yeah, the floor is open. With any questions you've got anywhere. Eric says that he's taken a bunch of courses on the lynda.com LinkedIn Learning. Highly recommends. I've heard that from other people as well. I haven't dug in there yet, but one of the courses I posted in there is from Morten Rand Hendrickson, and I can vouch for him for sure as somebody who's an amazing instructor on WordPress.com. Mike, did you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick one. It
Sure.
looked like you had a repository, and I think you called it custom post fields, object fields. Is that what it was? So you could do your maps, you could do your text, you could do your text box, you could do your titles, and it looked like there was a repository.
Yeah, that's directly from the advanced custom fields documentation. So if you go to documentation, there's one of the first items is field types, and it's 29. It's in-depth documentation for each of those field types.
And do they provide you the particular code that I assume it's PHP, most of it?
Yeah, yep. It'll give an example of, again, if you want to use an image, like images specifically, it will show you just kind of the bare bones, upload an image, output an image. And then there's a more advanced example if you want to preset the size of the image, the alt text, all of that.
Okay.
Yeah, so they give really good examples. If sometimes you get lucky and the thing you're trying to create is the example he used, but he usually gives enough of an in-depth example where you can understand how you would use it to your own purposes.
Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Terry's got something.
Yeah. So this might be a newbie question. So where is all the data, like all the PHP, is that all stored in the plugin? Or if it's stored in the, I don't understand where the PHP, the code goes.
Yeah, so in this case, in the example I was using, I created a child theme of 2020, which is the default WordPress theme. And so the code is going right into those templates.
Like the header PHP and all
yep.
that? Okay.
Yeah, so that's typically where everything will be. For some of the site-wide examples, there are, they're not my favorite, but there are some kind of code editing plugins which will allow you to add your own code snippets to different parts of a site. The nice thing is they're what's called theme agnostic, so that data would then be stored in a place that isn't specific to the theme. But yeah, typically speaking, you're putting those snippets in different parts of the theme template. So the header or the post content template, stuff like that.
Oh, okay. So you're creating the child theme and then going into, for example, the header PHP, making a header PHP in that child theme and adding all that code into that.
Yep.
Yes? Okay.
Yep.
I got it. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
I'm looking at it over here, so I can. I'm looking at the documentation stuff.
Yeah, and that's a tricky one. You know, he doesn't necessarily say put this code here. The one example where he did was where creating that options page, that code goes in your functions.php file, because it's, again, it's site wide. It's a little bit hard, I think, to create global documentation because some themes might not even leverage header.php in that same way. So there's not a definitive place of where to put it. But it does sound like Divi is worth exploring for someone that wants to do a little bit more of the no code option and just get used to storing data elsewhere and not have to deal with the learning curve of then creating PHP.
Yeah, I was going to say, Terry, you might do well with, I know you use Divi, right? Do you have Divi on this site?
Yep.
So you could just create a either a custom post type, or you could do it based on the category of the post. You could build it out with the Divi builder, the way that you want it to, you know, the layout that you want it to look. And then you can just have those ACF fields that then plug into the output fields using the Divi builder, the theme builder.
So with so I'd tell the custom post type for text field. I know this is a bad example, but for a text field, I want this, or a specific kind of text field, I want these choices. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, so you would put, like, you might have a custom you know, a custom field for ingredients, right? And then you have, and that's like a list type, let's say. And then that's just a field that's in your post. So when your client goes to fill in the ingredients that are in that recipe, there's just a field there for them to fill in their ingredients. I don't know exactly what your recipe plugin looks like, but you might be able to set it up similar to that.
Okay. The recipe plugin that we have in there is fine for now. I think what happened, for what I was talking about, was she wanted the recipes listed with a featured image, and then in the sidebar she wanted the dates, and somehow the date, last time I looked at the site, that it was only listing post dates, not project dates, and all the recipes are in the project category. So I just put a list of the names. Like, you don't really need the dates. There's only like 15 recipes. Just list the names there. So, but yeah, that I can, yeah. I'm just thinking about this for other things. So, and understanding how everything gets built because of where all the code goes, and you explain that. And as far as in the Divi thing, I'd have to play with that to get a better understanding, though. Michelle, thank you for trying to explain it. I have to look at it a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely play around with the theme builder if you haven't yet.
Okay.
It's really powerful.
Yeah, do you know what recipe plugin it is offhand?
I might have it open. You know, I can't. I want to say it's like WP recipe or something like that. I can't.
Yeah,
remember.
if it's WP Recipe Maker, I think is.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
There's a developer named Bill Erickson that does a lot of great tutorials, and I know I just happened upon it the other day. He actually has a guide for how to use advanced custom fields in WP Recipe Maker.
What was his name again?
Bill Erickson. I think his site might be just billerickson.com.
Okay.
BillErickson.net. Erickson with a K. And he has a guide for how to create custom fields specific to Recipe Maker, but then Recipe Maker itself has kind of its own like little built-in template editor, and he has a guide to pulling advanced custom fields into that template editor. So that might cut out the middleman of needing Divi in this case, but I haven't used it myself, but I just came across that randomly this week. So.
Wow. Okay. Thanks.
Barbara says, is there a tool that has simple instructions to what each element is and what it corresponds to? I'm not sure, Barbara, do you mean in ACF or in general with WordPress?
I don't know. Oh, general WP. Oh, WPBeginner.com.
Yep. Saeed Valky's got a great site there for that, actually.
They really, I mean, as the name says, I think it does, from what I've seen, the best job at like the 101 stuff with WordPress. You still kind of, I think, need to know a little bit about the problem you're trying to solve to find something in depth. Just because WordPress is so broad, even the Cliff Notes would be long. But I would say WP Beginner is a great site to start with.
Thank you. The other question I have is, I have a Wix site that was probably about 80% ready to launch. Is there any way you can migrate what's on Wix and put it over on WordPress? That was one thing GoDaddy said. Well, you can just copy and paste, but I can't do how this person built me the fields. I can't, I mean, you can go and take out every little piece and move that over. But does my question make sense? I'm sorry, I'm really new at this and I'm struggling.
No, don't apologize. So as with every helpful answer, it depends. There is a Wix to WordPress import, export, or export import process. I will say it will likely leave something to be desired. It's really meant for if you have pages and posts that are mostly text and images, it's possible to import that, but you're not going to get the theme structure and things like that. So it's built to save time on a data entry front, but I think that the only really reliable way to get everything is either manually, or there are people out there that do that as a service, but it's definitely manual more than automated. But you can pull data over.
You can put, right, but you're still going to have to design it in WordPress. You're not going to be able to pull over the design.
Yeah.
Okay, so my other question that I had was, so I went and I purchased a tool from Theme Forest, and it's one that, because I don't write code, that I can load everything on the front end. So it's an either or. And it's called Hook, H-O-O-K, and it comes with like all these bells and whistles that I was so excited just reading everything it would do. This is what I imagined was going to happen when I asked GoDaddy to install it for me. And unfortunately, when I went out and they said, okay, we've got that, I bought those credits, we've got it installed. And now I'm even more confused than before I bought that purchased theme, because it looks like there's all those little bells and whistles that I fell in love with. Nothing works. I have to figure out how to, is that a plugin? What is it? And how does it work?
Yeah, it's without actually being able to look at your site. And it sounds to me like it would be worthwhile to sit down with somebody who could help you with some of this. We have a lot of freelancers in our group, people that would be, more than happy to spend a little time with you, taking a look at it together. But it'd be hard to diagnose.
Where my barriers are, right.
Yeah, Jessup's on his way out. Jessup, thank you so much. We'll touch base with you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you, Joseph.
But yeah, Barbara, I think it really sounds like it'd be a good idea to sit down with somebody who can kind of look at it with you and kind of make some suggestions, or even quote you a price to kind of finish it up for you and see what you're up to. But it's really.
So that's how I would use your Facebook site, Michelle?
Yeah,
put a post out there and say, can somebody give me some quotes to?
Absolutely. Yep.
Hourly or is it typically an hourly charge, or is it like each little piece like GoDaddy is?
So like Kathy said, my famous line is, it depends. And the truth is, it really does depend. Somebody might quote you an hourly rate, or they might look at the whole thing and just quote you a price to finish whatever, like for the job. It just really is up to the individual and how they want to work that with you. But yeah, you can post that in the Facebook group. That's what we're all about there, and helping each other out. And then also, quoting jobs and things like that for sure.
And this will be my last question, I promise. When you are looking at, I want to learn, I want to be able to do it myself. I've worked on websites for, for a hospital system, a college, a parish. So I have I'm savvy about things, but typically I'd work with someone and I make my own little cheat sheet of what I need to do.
Uh-huh.
Now that I've gone this way, that was what I was envisioning. I can do this, no problem.
Sure.
But it's like, no, now I need to go back to school and to WordPress school, evidently, and figure this WordPress out.
So there are definitely classes online. So if you go to like LinkedIn Learning, Morton Ryan Hendrickson has some great intro to WordPress classes, things that can kind of get you up and running fairly quickly.
Okay.
We have the monthly meetup here. Of course, it's not the same as going to,
right.
A class. I used to offer classes in Rochester, before COVID and all that other kind of stuff.
Right.
We may get back to those eventually again. But definitely I would say, you might want to look into one or two of those online classes just to kind of feel like you have a head start on what you're doing.
Okay.
And always, of course, feel free to ping us in the Facebook group. Or come to all of our meetups. I hope that you'll come to future ones as well, and see how we can maybe help you out a little bit.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that. I had just gotten hooked up with the SCORE group down at the Rochester Public Library.
Nice.
So, and then at GoDaddy, everybody's been kind of connecting the dots as to who to get with. So I appreciate everything this evening. And
yeah.
To you.
That's what we do.
Bye-bye.
Yep.
I might make a couple of follow-up comments.
Sure.
I was with GoDaddy for years, and then I left them about a year and a half, maybe a little bit more. They're notorious for upselling all the time. So depending on what hosting service, some hosts will actually migrate your site for you, your first one. Wix, I don't really know, but if it's this contained environment, that's the difference between owning and renting a little bit. And so you have this proprietary enclosed system like Shopify's that way. And it's hard to migrate from that. So if your site's not too big, I wouldn't be too discouraged. You're probably getting a lot of conflicting information right now, but GoDaddy does have a really popular, powerful theme called Go that is free. And it integrates with their WordPress optimized servers. What you're trying to decide is probably what platform to work on. And it's confusing because you're trying to get off of Wix, you're trying to get onto the new service, and that's frustrating. But once you get into a spot where you can start building your website and you learn it, the learning curve isn't as nearly what it was even 3 or 4 years ago. I think once you get in a comfortable environment, you get a theme that you can rely on, and you start getting familiar with the editor, you're going to be able to do a lot. And these meetups are going to help you a lot. But what you hear and GoDaddy does have pretty good support, but they always like to upsell. That's the one thing on there. They're forever trying to upsell you. But I would not get discouraged. I think once you get the theme that you're comfortable with, and you start getting on a hosting provider that works for you, I think you'll do just fine. You just have to be patient.
That's really good advice. Absolutely.
Sounds like great advice, Mike. I'd like to caution, though, against using some provider provided resources like themes and whatnot, that they might not be transportable if you move to a new host.
I agree. With Wix, I don't know that environment, and that theme may not be transportable. But I have been doing a lot of these meetups with a lot of the automatic WordPress.com, WooCommerce guys, and they like that Go theme. They like Astra, they like WP Ocean, and these all have free versions that you can actually get a lot done, and it can give you a lot of functionality without spending a lot of money. But you're right. I don't know the Wix environment, and you may have some real headaches. So hopefully the website's not too big, but you do want to be in a platform that you can scale long term and give you good speed. That's the other thing with these Wixes, and a little bit with Divi and a little bit with some of these page builders. They tend to be code heavy, particularly when it comes to your mobile. So, but if you're not doing 1,000 transactions a day, you're probably not going to notice. But web speeds can be a big issue for some folks. That's why you want a pretty clean, efficient theme that doesn't have a whole lot of not bloated with code, with a server hosting company that's known for some decent load times, which can be tough and with shared servers, which is the most economical way to go. But I think I take your point, Mike, about in that WIC environment, that theme may not move over very easily, and you may have to just rebuild it if you're committed to moving.
Yeah, I had one theme that I liked a lot that I got from GoDaddy. I don't remember what it was offhand, but when I moved to SiteGround, those two sites needed new themes.
I actually moved to SiteGround from GoDaddy. GoDaddy was great for a decade, and then about 2 years ago, they just went through a patch, and I moved to SiteGround, and it all went very well for me. They gave me the first migration completely free. They did it for me, but then I started building sites. I think I used mostly Astra, WP. I got a couple other themes that I've used, and I'm just using the free versions. And it's, now I'm starting to build just directly with Gutenberg with the block editor.
Right.
So I think with Gutenberg, even Gutenberg a year ago was kind of a major headache. But what you can do with it now, and what you're going to be able to do here in the next year, 18 months, that just seems to be the platform that of the future. I don't know if you feel the same way, but
I do, yeah.
I heard today, I was on Twitter or in one of the other Facebook groups I'm in, that SiteGround is no longer doing free migrations. They're charging $30 now for migrations.
Oh, really?
Oh, that may be true. They would do the first one, but they also provide a migration tool, a plugin that seemed to work pretty well. Because I think I moved 5 websites from 4 websites, something like that.
I just moved all my sites from SiteGround to other hosting to manage WordPress hosting, so that I don't have to manage all the updates and everything anymore. But
where'd you move to?
I moved to Sentry, Sentry.io, SCNTREE. I also work for them, so that was kind of a added benefit. So that's my other job, my part-time job in WordPress is managing all of their content and marketing.
Well, I think SiteGround's suffering a little bit from growth. They were pretty competitive. They had really good load speeds. They've slowed down a little bit, but they did a migration and then a bunch of updates. They're going away from cPanel. I think a little bit of that have caught up with them, but for the most part, their support has been pretty good. And I don't really have bad marks for them.
Yeah, I think their support is great also. And I have friends that work there, so I can't really say anything bad about it.
Yeah.
So.
There's I wish I could think of it. There's an independent person that just rates. That's all he does is he rates hosting services. I think it's called Critical Web. I can't remember the name exactly, but it's not. He didn't have any vested interest. He just measures these sites. He puts sites on them, and you can get But there's what's happening in the hosting space. The prices are coming down. They have value-added services. You can get really, really good hosting anymore. What used to be $100, $200 a month, you can get way cheaper.
Yeah,
be pretty happy with. Yeah.
Did I see this, that SiteGround raised their initial, like if it's the first time you purchase hosting with them, they raised it? It used to be $3.95 a month for the first year or 3, and did they?
It might be.
Did anybody else hear that? I thought I an email that they raised it. I mean, like I'm past that point of being able to get that initial startup price. I thought they raised startup prices, and I haven't checked.
I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't checked, but it wouldn't surprise me because in almost every one of these meetups, there's usually 2 or 3 people that are on SiteGround now, and I think they're out of Europe somewhere. Actually, I think they're out of like
I want to say Australia,
Eastern Bloc country.
SiteGround, they're in Romania.
Yes,
Romania,
they're in Romania. Yeah.
And they kind of took things by storm, but my guess is they're loading up their servers pretty good now, and so. But yeah, I don't know. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead, Mike. Yeah, I was just going to suggest. SiteGround is great, as well as all the other WordPress companies at doing Black Friday things. They had, I think SiteGround had an incredible deal if you can wait, and then usually around holidays they may do something. So I would say don't feel like you have to jump on the rate right now. They may give a sale. sometime soon.
Yeah.
Hi, Joe. You did the workshop during the word camp. Was it Denver?
Yes.
That was you?
On plugin? Yes.
Yeah,
on
a little
plugins,
different
yeah.
picture of you there. But okay, do you work for SiteGround, or you have some affiliation with them, or?
Well, I'm an ambassador with them,
Okay.
but I
Yeah.
work for a transit agency during the day. But
Okay, so you've got two hats then, huh?
yeah.
No, I'm happy with SiteGround. I think they've done pretty good. So I didn't
I'm
want to.
happy with them too. I just remembered, and I just checked, because like their startup price for, you know, the initial time you sign up with them was $3.95 a month, and now it's $6.99 a month. So I was recommending. I mean, I still recommend it to a lot of people, but I just realized
I have nothing negative to say about them at all. I just get free hosting someplace else now. So
yeah, I like it very much.
Yeah, you can't beat it. I mean, I work for it, but it's not money coming out of my pocket, right? So, but I've always said that if you ask a room of 10 people who the best host is, you're going to get 10 answers. So we all have just like if you say, what's the best form plugin? We all have a different idea of which form plugin, well, except Michelle. Michelle knows exactly which form plugin she's going to use. But depending on what the need is, you might not need something as big as Gravity, so you might use something else in that place, or you might use Caldera or something different. So lots of different.
I think I went to SiteGround because you recommended them, Michelle.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, I still have nothing bad to say about them. I just get free someplace else. So.
Yeah. Oh, I would do that too.
Yeah, like what Kathy says, free is always in the budget. It's definitely in my budget. Yeah. You know. And I have very, very good feelings about SiteGround, and was with them for years. And like I said, some of my good friends work there. So nothing.
Can I ask a question on a different topic?
Yes, please.
I'm looking for a, let's see, a solution for online training that, and here, you know, the price tag of free would be great, where the, let's see if I can get it right here. We'd be putting up videos, and then we'd like the videos to be, we'd like to know who views, for how long they view, and who completes the view, and things like that. Does anybody have any suggestions?
So I don't know exactly what all the back end functions are, but there's a plugin called Lifter LMS that does have a free option. It's a course plugin. So that might be worth checking out.
Great, thank you very much.
That was good with my suggestion as well. Chris Badgett is one of the primaries there, and he's amazing. I've interviewed him on my podcast, and I have only good things to say about him too. So
that's Lifter, L-I-F-T-E-R, is that right?
Lifter LMS.
Yeah. Oh, LMS.
Lifter Learning Management System. Lifter LMS.
Okay.
Yep. Pretty cool stuff.
Thank you.
Other questions? Anything else we can help each other with tonight? Michelle, are you going to introduce us to your assistant?
This is my son, Jackson. He's 5. He just got back from swimming at his aunt's house, so he's very tired.
Oh, fun. It was good to see him. Kathy, were you going to say something? I heard somebody else's voice. Oh, it was Terry?
It was me. I was going to say to Michelle, that can't be the baby you just had, because we haven't been like in quarantine that long. So when you said he was 5, I realized it's not.
No, I didn't have a baby in quarantine. He's my baby.
Wait, but I thought you just had, didn't you just have? Maybe I'm mixing you up with somebody else. Okay,
Yeah,
never
it wasn't
mind.
me.
Sorry.
Are you thinking about Amanda? We did the SEO presentation? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, her little guy, Ronan, is 7 months old now? 8 months old? He was born in November.
Yeah.
He's a cutie pie. He's got 11 teeth already. I can't believe it. I know. It's crazy. Joe, do you have anything to contribute today? Anything, questions? Anything worth sharing with us?
Well, I just wanted to jump in and see. I was excited that I was accepted to speak at WordCamp Rochester. So,
me too.
Yeah, so I just wanted to see what's going on in the community. And actually, when I saw ACF, we just had a meetup here where someone came in and did ACF in relation to Elementor.
Oh, nice.
So I wanted to see this one because I've done something in ACF a while back.
Mhm.
So I was just checking in to say hi.
Nice. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, it's great. Like I'm still on the clock technically, so I'm working, but it's good to listen to folks talk WordPress. So that's why
Absolutely.
I've had my camera off.
No problem.
So is your Denver presentation up yet?
Oh, it went up today.
Yep, they all did, I think.
Awesome. I
Yeah, it
just
went up
missed
today.
it and I really wanted to check it out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was fun. It was about plugins, and a lot of the questions that I've been hearing today about how to get started with hosting, and like my audience is generally beginners to WordPress. Like I tend to want to stick in that area because there's lots of questions. Like I run a meetup here and a couple of meetups here in Los Angeles. So I love this topic and I love hearing the questions that people come to meetups with. So I'm just listening.
Awesome. Very good. Kathy, you have any questions today? Kathy's quiet. Anybody else? And we don't have to go to 8:30 if we're done, but I don't want to cut us off either if people have things they want to discuss.
I follow up. There's a question in there for Mike. I don't know if it was me or the other Mike about a name mentioned. Was that about the independent site hosting reviews? Whoever asked that.
Barbara, that was your question.
I did go find the link. It's Signal Review, so I'm posting it in there in case that's what.
Perfect. She says yes, that was the question. So there's the answer to that.
All right.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike, for finding that for us.
Thanks, Mike.
Awesome. Well, Sarah, do you want to do a brief commercial about WordCamp Rochester and how people can get tickets and that kind of thing?
Sure. You can go to 2020.rochester.wordcamp.org, and I will put that in. We don't have the tickets open yet. We're going to soon when we officially announce the schedule. As a couple of you have noted, we have our speakers lined up. We're just polishing off a couple details before we make the schedule official, but we're really excited. We are committed to doing a virtual WordCamp, and it will be Saturday, October 3rd. Tickets will be free.
Yay!
As all virtual WordCamps are.
I'm so sorry, Sarah. I should have said anything. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's okay. We've sent out all our acceptance and declines. We just have a couple things to tidy up so that we can have all the details ready to go. And we're also looking for sponsors and certainly attendees. So please come. No reason not to. We've got actually a few of our speakers are here tonight. So I'm excited about that. We have a shortened schedule, so we have less speakers than we normally do. But I think it's going to be great. Myself and the other three organizers, we've been attending as many of the virtual WordCamps as we can to get lots of ideas and following up with the different groups to find out what their lessons learned are. So by the time we get to October, we'll be ready to roll.
There you go. Barbara wants to know what time is it on October 3rd. So do you know what the scheduled time will be yet?
We're going to start around 8:30, and everything will be recorded too.
So 8:30 a.m. until early afternoon?
Yeah, maybe 5:30ish, and we have some ideas to do something fun after that in place of the after party. Yeah.
Very good.
You have to bring your own food and drinks though.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Thank you.
So for the person, I'm sorry, Michelle. For the person that's new to WordCamp Rochester, tell us a little bit of the backstory. How long has it been going on? And it's a one-day event this year, of course.
Yep, it has been, and this is our 5th year, and our WordCamp Rochester founder is Michelle. Started it 5 years ago, and where did we do that first one? At U of R?
That one was at U of R Simon School,
Yep. And then we went to Brockport and then St. John Fisher, which is where we were going to be this year,
right.
Until the pandemic.
Right.
So this will be
pandemic.
first virtual. We've had some issues over the previous years with being able to successfully record sessions. We've gotten some in some years, so this will be great that we've got the production and captioning vendors lined up through WordCamp Central, so we're confident that everything will be recorded and available to anybody who can't be there for the whole day.
Nice.
Yep.
That'll be great. Fantastic. Yeah, WordCamp Rochester was my passion project.
You missed the tchotchke.
I know. Virtual swag just isn't the same.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And WordCamp Denver actually mailed out speaker swag. They sent us buffs like those like Survivor wears.
Oh, nice.
It arrived a little too late to wear it on like to the event, but I modeled it on Twitter if you really want to see.
Oh,
my
nice.
Twitter account and see what it looks like.
Yeah, it's definitely challenging between like we already had our budget set and everything, and we had our venue set, and so then for a little while we were planning both virtual and in person, and then we went to let's just do all virtual.
Yeah.
But still we're looking at speakers, international speakers, and
Yeah.
probably more so than we would have originally.
Yeah.
But all that stuff, all the swag and everything, it takes on a whole different
Really
perspective when you're talking about shipping things and what can be available and such. Yeah.
And WordCamp US is also in October, so October 27th to the 29th. And I'm the lead for my squad, which is the PR communication squad for WordCamp US. And we have been getting more and more active with our Twitter account and starting to post our blog posts. And so if you're interested in what's going on at WordCamp US, that's 2020.us.wordcamp.org. Tickets will also be free. It is also an online event. And yeah, so go to both. You'll see speakers from all over the world at both of those events. So. And Joe's on the WordCamp US organizing team as well. He's on the programming team.
Yeah, we just deliberated over the past weekend before the 4th of July on speakers. So I think that information is going to be surfacing soon. So it's exciting. It's my first time around. So I'm really, really excited to be on the team with so many cool people like you.
Thank you. This is my second year, and I finally feel like I kind of know what I'm doing. It takes a little while, doesn't it, Sarah?
Yep.
For sure.
I posted a few links in chat for our WordCamp, for WordCamp US, and then for all the WordCamps.
Thank you.
Many of them, some of them are getting canceled, but many are going online. So it's a great way to pick up some. They're all free tickets, so it's a nice way to get some more learning in.
Absolutely.
And networking.
Absolutely. All right. Any more questions, or are we going to call it a night? I'm happy to answer more or talk more. All right. Well, why don't we say goodnight then? You're all invited. I think some of you, Mike, I think I already put you into our WordPress group on Facebook. So
Thank you.
Barbara, I don't know if I saw you do that, if I put you in there yet or not, but if you haven't, feel free to go ahead and join that, and we'll make sure that you get in there as well. So it's great to see everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. And yeah, welcome to come back next time. I'm working on, oh, there's Joe. Hi, Joe. I'm working on the topic for next month. So I'll be releasing that shortly as soon as I've got something finalized on that. So, all right. So I'm gonna stop recording now.